So a number of years ago, I managed to get myself arrested, although I didn't do it on purpose. What happened was I had been upstate from where I live, a couple hundred miles upstate, and I was doing some hunting. And I was ready to drive home, and on the way back, I decided I needed to relieve myself. There was an Indian casino out in the middle of nowhere, so I pulled into their parking lot. But rather than go inside and use the bathroom like normal people are supposed to do, I thought it would be just a whole lot easier to go behind a bush, which I did. But the problem was I failed to take note that at Indian casinos there's a security camera about every 50 feet, at least one of which captured me. And I got back in my car and I was getting ready to leave, not realizing I'd done anything wrong. But I opened the glove compartment to retrieve something out of the glove box before I got back on the highway, and a loaded handgun slid out of my glove box. That was also on video camera. Before I actually had the car in gear and managed to back out and head back for the highway, I found myself surrounded by 4 or 5 armed uniformed security personnel, and I was summarily put in handcuffs, thrown in the back of a police cruiser, and hauled off to jail locally, a couple hundred miles from home. So I got an attorney, and I explained to the arresting officer that I had an opinion on loaded handguns, and my opinion was derived from the Second Amendment to our U.S. Constitution, which I took quite literally. And believe it or not, he said, I agree with you. Unfortunately, it's still against the law and you are under arrest. So there I sat in jail for a while until I posted bond. And after I left, I hired an attorney. I was told that the charge I was charged with, although it was categorized as a misdemeanor, first of all, it carried a 6-month jail term, and secondly, it could get a lot worse because my infractions occurred on federal land, so I could be facing federal charges rather than just state or local charges if they decided to get nasty about things. So anyway, I got an attorney, and my attorney explained to me that the assistant district attorney handling my case, he thought was bipolar, and she was intent on putting me in jail, despite the fact I had no criminal record, and I was in my 50s at this time, and I thought, well, why don't they just drop the charges? This is just really a misunderstanding, but apparently they didn't look at it that way. So I was being charged with this crime, and ultimately the charge was dropped. My attorney specializes in criminal law, and he's a very good attorney, but I tell this story because it wasn't his expertise at the law that ended up getting the charges dropped. I'm not telling this tale for entertainment. You know, it wasn't that glamorous or that much fun at the time, but there was a lesson in it, because the charge was dropped, but for some kind of local ordinance for relieving myself in the bushes rather than using the bathroom. And so that carried like a fine of $100 or something, and it disappeared on my record. There was nothing there. So I was up there paying my fine at the courthouse when who walks out of the courthouse but the arresting officer. So I walked up and I apologized to him, and I said, you may remember me. I'm the fellow you arrested out at the Indian casino, and I just wanted to apologize. I didn't mean to create any anxiety for people thinking they were surrounded in a car with somebody with a loaded gun. And he said, and this is where it got to me, he said, actually what happened, he said, before the judge dropped the charges against you, he called me. And he said, how did this individual conduct himself when he was arrested? He said, I was able to tell the judge that not only did you have no prior record, but you were courteous, respectful, cooperative, and very polite during the period of time when we arrested you and held you prior to releasing you for bail. There's not a doubt in my mind that that is what persuaded the judge that I was not an arch criminal, didn't need a record, and he dropped the charges. So I have no criminal record whatsoever pertaining to that. I bring this up not because getting arrested is glamorous, but because manners and how we conduct ourselves around other people is critically important to how we live our life and how successful we are. I did not conduct myself courteously because I expected to gain any particular favor. I conducted myself a certain way because it's a reflection of who I am. And it's that I want to talk about just a little bit today, because I work with a lot of young people, and many of them have had traumatic lives, and they have a lot of anger issues and disrespect for being told what to do. It's important to conduct ourselves in a certain way, respectfully towards others, hopefully cheerfully most of the time, and with very good manners. And it's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's a reflection of who we are, not a reflection of them. If somebody's nasty to me and I'm nasty back, all I'm doing is reflecting their character back at them, and that's not going to do anybody any good. If somebody's nasty to me and I maintain my composure and continue to treat them respectfully and courteously, that's a reflection of me. Two things happen with good manners and respect. The first is that over time, if we're dealing with the same people, how we treat them is going to have an impact for most people. And sooner or later, they're likely to reflect your character back at you rather than vice versa. Not always, but most of the time. The second, and this is the most important, the Bible tells us if we're slapped on one cheek to turn the other cheek. Jesus tells us to treat people the way we want to be treated. And elsewhere the Bible tells us that we're to treat people with courtesy and respect and gentleness whenever we can. What happens is, if somebody's mean to me and I respond in kind rather than in character, they just control my reaction. If I don't like somebody and I know what it takes to upset their day, all I have to do is push the right buttons. And I think God and Jesus does not want us thrown off stride by the circumstances of the world or other people. If we maintain self-control from good character, people aren't going to be able to rob us of our peace, because they're not going to be able to cause us to react in a certain way that diminishes us. If I maintain my balance, my respect, and my self-control in the face of opposition, there's not much further they can go to control me. And so choosing and maintaining a proper attitude and one of respect is critically important to who we are and maintaining our peace. The worst thing we can do to the circumstances of life is react badly. That's where we lose control, lose our peace, and lose our joy. And if you are looking at this video and saying, okay, that makes sense, but how do I go about it? I've had anger issues forever, and so has been nasty to me forever and doesn't deserve my respect. Well, if we all got what we deserve, it would be a nasty world to live in, first of all. But secondly, I think it's important to come into a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Once that happens, God promises us His Spirit living within us to guide, comfort, and strengthen us and help us to change. Beyond that, on a pragmatic level, start small. Pick out somebody you don't get along with real well, but who is not real hard to deal with, and just start practicing courtesy towards them, and cheerfulness and respect. And keep at it, keep at it, keep at it until they respond to you in kind, so you no longer have to respond to them in kind. If you do that and just build on it, you can turn it into a game while you're changing your character. And you can have some fun with it as well by setting up little challenges for yourself and practicing and practicing and practicing until, little by little, the world doesn't exercise control over your attitude or who you are any longer. So, thanks for watching.